First of all, just obviously, I wasn't aware that the chair, Andrew, Councillor Hart, can't be here this evening, so I do apologise that you've got me, but hopefully, also based on what Councillor Hawley has just said at full council, we will get through this in good time. Therefore, I need to just say the following. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddulph Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision-making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community in local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded and for your image to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Biddulph Town Council. Please view the guidance on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. Okay, so hopefully you've all got the agendas in front of you, either hard copy or electronically. And so 64 is apologies.
Just Councillor Hart.
Okay. And I am aware that Councillor Hart has been unwell on and off for some time. I think many of you know that. So I'd certainly like it to be known that I send my, but the fact that he's not called me to say that I was going to be doing this tells me that I just want to send my best wishes to him, because normally he takes great pride in joy in calling me to say if I have to do this. Declarations of interest, disclosable pecuniary interests and dispensations, ones that you can make some money from.
No.
No, and other interests.
Nope.
Nope. 66 is minutes to approve and sign the minutes of the Recreation and Amenities Committee meeting held on the 13th of February 2024. As everybody in this room has just done that in full council, I'm assuming we can just go ahead and I can initial it accordingly. Thank you. Okay, I think this is where we may be moving quite regularly over to the wonderful person to my right. So number 67 is to receive an update on footpath projects within the town, a Moorlands Walking Festival.
Thank you. Yes. So I'll be quite brief on this. So I have had a meeting recently about Moorlands Walking Festival, which there is a really lovely website for. It's Staff's Moorlands Walking Festival.co.uk. It's running between the 26th of April and the 6th of May. And along the top of that website, there are all sorts of different walks that are going on across the whole Moorlands area throughout that period. There are some areas that are missing as far as the organisers are concerned. So they want to do more themed walks, whether that be this year or going forward. So this is kind of food for thought for you. If you've got something in mind that we can add to it now, brilliant. But themed walks are something that they haven't got a great deal of, particularly in Biddulph. They haven't got as many walks for people whose mobility, who have some mobility challenges as they'd like. So I suppose that's potentially more urban walks, more interesting, kind of flatter walks. So they'd like us to think about that. And also more walks that might be suitable for children and families. So I agreed to kind of link the team in with the Biddulph Ramblers and other associations in the town who are keen to walk. So I will do that. I've also put a line in the recent Biddulph Times, which should come out in good time for that, just to advise people that that's going on. So we need to either try and think of something really quickly to go into that we can send, that's being updated on an almost daily basis with different walks that have come from different areas across the moors, or to kind of maybe better engage with it next year, try and come with content for next year.
No, I absolutely agree. And in another guise, I'm sort of working quite a lot closely at the moment with Councillor Swindlehurst from SMDC, who oversees the tourism portfolio, and I know he's been heavily involved in this walking festival. he presented it when there was a big gathering, the big tourism conference, I think they called themselves. I think we were there, were we not? At Alton Towers. And I know he's very keen that we do look at I certainly stated that I was keen that we went through subject-based walks, rides, etc., based on the area. And I'm looking very much at Councillor Lawton in front of me right now, who's our resident historian. But certainly off the top of my head, I have a personal affinity with Methodism and primitive Methodism and Wesleyan Methodism. And of course, in this immediate area, you've got some of the finest examples of chapels in the UK, if not the world. And so some kind of rides or walk based around that, just as an example. And I know that's certainly what what Councillor Swindlehurst is keen to see and hear more of. So I think as a group, if we have knowledge of those specific topic areas of which there could be a decent walk or ride, then I think it would be extremely useful. I think there probably are going to be more in next year, but I think it's something that we could certainly discuss as a council and an authority. Sorry, Mayor.
Well, picking up on what you just said, I mean, I've been down the Merebrook, the reservoir. If you set off from their centre, you go, I think there's a couple of hundred or a couple of thousand yards, and you've got a chair to sit down on a bench, and it actually tells you how far you've walked in metres. And I think if we had walks like that around Biddulph, telling you how far you'd walked, because you're setting yourself a target to reach. I mean, if I can reach 5,000, I'm going to try 10,000 next time. I think little things like that could spice them all up.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because I believe in London they have the thing now because everybody with their Fitbits and their watches went for the 10,000, 15,000 and 20,000 steps. And they have a series of walks that they say are 10,000, 15,000 or 20,000. Obviously, depends how long your legs are. But, it should be there and there. For Councillor Jackson and I, probably more steps than it is for some of the others within this room. But yeah, I agree. I think that's
We've sort of put that forward.
Absolutely.
I think if I may, Chair, I think if we're going to develop things, it needs to be us that develop them and then give them to the walking festival as a kind of fait accompli, really. So it's if you've got something now, brilliant, we can send that off as a done deal, and it can be on the website, promote Biddulph. Failing that, it's definitely one for us to back
I agree. I mean, I'm sure Councillor Lawton knows exactly where 20,000 steps gets him, because whenever I see him, he's walking. So it's but I think it's right, because I think linking it into the health and well-being agenda, I think is always there, and it is that link, and that again. In the discussions I've had with Councillor Swindlehurst, it's that link between health and well-being and heritage. They are inextricably linked if you're doing a cultural or a tourism strategy. So on to B, the Trent Valley Way.
Thank you. So we've talked previously about how we've planned out a potential route from the head of the Trent, basically taking you down to Knibsley Reservoir. I've been in contact with not sure what the title is. He's a kind of ranger at the county council. I've sent him our proposed route. He's going to walk the route and then essentially come up with a to-do list of things that could be improved in order to make it more accessible. I've also emailed the Trent Valley Way team to say this is the proposed route through Biddulph, and that I've said this is a plan of action, and I've asked them what we would have to do in order to take in order to use their branding, ask them what funding they've got to kind of start this walk, because we've talked about interpretation boards and improvements to styles, that kind of thing. So it's really just a note on this one that we have a proposed route for this, and we're just waiting to hear back from partners on the extent of the work, and then we can put together a funding proposal for how we move that together.
Right.
Everybody all right with that? Fantastic. And finally, C, the Emerging Walks Guides.
Yes, so we've been looking at walks around Biddulph and kind of they've got some very old leaflets downstairs, and then fortuitously had an email from a gentleman who lives locally who's very keen on maps, and he asked whether the the town council would support the publication of a map, which is particularly around the country park and paths of that area, to kind of show people where bridleways are and footpaths are, where the roads are and that kind of thing. And whether we would consider supporting that. So he has put together a draft map, which he sent to us. And we were proposing to put some words on the other side. And obviously, as we kind of have a footpaths budget, which is overseen by this committee, I wondered whether you felt like that was a good use of resources if we can bring a draft back of the whole document. And then to start to do more walks around Biddulph and to kind of revisit some of the very, very old literature that we've got in reception.
Is that something that we should vote on as well?
And I suppose really this could be the start of something as well. So
Yeah.
actually, if you think there are other walks in the town that we should revisit and kind of do some work on, that we can move that forward next.
Mr. Mayor?
Again, Malcop, we've got the end or the start, because we did it in reverse when I did the Staffordshire Way. And we could link into for those hardy walkers, they could link into the Staffordshire Way as well. And why not use it?
We've also got a significant section of the Gritstone Trail, which links from Kidsgrove Station to, I think it's Bisley Station, isn't it?
That's right. And we should.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Happy for that as a direction of travel.
Yeah,
Kind of
absolutely.
revisit some of
Absolutely.
those maps, get some better.
Yeah.
Do we need a proposal to? What's to do?
If it needs, do you think we need a proposal or is it just?
I just want to make you aware of what the
Okay.
thought process is really at this stage, and if you're happy with that as a
Yeah.
piece of work
Yeah.
to do, and then I can bring you back some drafts.
That makes a lot of sense. Councillor Smith.
Just ask about your little ranger friend that's you've made.
Let's find out what his better title is.
Yeah.
Great.
Found out his time. Would you be prepared to walk some other routes that we feel might need a little bit of work and a little bit of?
Potentially, I think the trouble is, the way it works with the footpaths team, I think, is that they have a North Staffordshire one and a South Staffordshire one. So he's like the one for the North. So I guess he's pulled all over the place with that, but absolutely, if we've got potential routes where we think there are issues, we can report that.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, maybe on on the north side, then we could perhaps we could involve Will, who's the wildlife trust guy. He's quite a helpful chap. Perhaps involve him because it's the same sort of job. With approaching him, Sarah, I think.
Agreed.
Okay. Got it. Wonderful, thank you. So 68, to receive an update on the memorial testing at the town burial ground and churchyard. And I think we have an additional, you should have an additional
Yeah.
for that, everyone.
So if you sit on the finance committee, you've had this piece of paper before. This is the cost that we considered a couple of 2-3 months ago now. And it took us something like 18 months to get a faculty to test the churchyard memorials. And the approved provider that was at the bottom, which is now crossed out from there, having now seen the faculty, doesn't believe that they can comply with the requirements in the faculty. So they have kind of stepped away from that. So what I need to tell you is that we don't currently have somebody who's doing memorial testing. As things stand, our next proposal would be the top one there, purely because we're not sure about the extent of the testing of the other one. But we have had an approach today from Alliance Environmental Services, which is obviously attached to the district council, who have heard via other clerks in other parishes that we might be interested in memorial testing and have suggested that that could be something that they could do. So what I'm essentially updating you on is the fact that we are a bit open at the moment with regards to this, but we have a solution in terms of getting a quotation from another organisation. If that turns out to be the cheapest one, I would suggest to you that, and I can take this to the finance committee, that we go with them. Failing that, we need to move forward quite quickly. And then we would need to go with the top one on that.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I think, really, haven't we, all we've got to do is cover our backs, that the report's been done, and that any are in an unsafe or unstable position are rectified, and then we are legally then covered. You know, these people have done the reports, these are the only ones that have got an issue with. You know, which, if anything, any remedial work needs doing on it, that is done. So, I mean, I'm looking at sort of those price. And if the Lions can come in somewhere and meet those requirements that you know, they can do the work that's required. I don't propose, like, wait, let's get the Lions to get a price off them and then make a decision. I realise we might be on thin ice here because we're not technically not compliant, I guess. But we are going through the process, so if anything did happen, I think we could argue, well, we are going through that process, we haven't got there yet.
From my perspective, we'd wanted to do this year. The faculty's taken
Yep.
such a long time to come through. And as far as you as a committee are concerned, we'd chosen a provider, we'd instructed the provider, which is exactly what we had done. Unfortunately, that provider's now come back and said they can't comply with the faculty, which is, obviously, we've agreed to that with the church, so we have to comply with that. So I bring this to you, I suppose, really for information at this point, but so that it's not a surprise to you, that actually we're going to have to choose someone new. We're going to ask this new company who've come forward today, as it happens, for their cost, but it could be that the cost that you'd originally anticipated for this piece of work is significantly more.
Councillor Harper, please.
Yeah, I'm just thinking as Kevin was speaking, actually, it's a health and safety issue. Soon these things out. Could we involve, or would it be possible to involve David Owen, or he might have contacts for this sort of thing?
Yeah,
Just put it before you.
he hasn't. I've asked him before.
Oh, well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
As long as you explore this area, that's.
Councillor Jones.
Chair, just so we're clear, I mean, this sheet we've got here, we're not in confidential, are we?
Yeah.
Can we divulge these numbers?
I don't know if you need to at this point, really.
I'm just making sure, you know, I slip up here. Because the first one, it seems like a lot of money, but it's for 4 years.
Yeah.
And they're talking about testing 1,000 memorials a year. We've got 1,000 memorials there, haven't you?
Got 4,072.
Really? Okay. But anyway, okay, and this is just a report and say, this is the state of it, this needs doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I'm just casting my mind, and Councillor Jackson's probably the only person in it that was here when George Brown was here. We did this testing nearly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember loads of memorials had steel rods knocked in them and by them and straps on them, and there's some still there that, you know, the recommendations were made, but they were never corrected. So we haven't got any teeth to enforce it. It's just a report. I think as Councillor Jackson says, are we right? That's all we need to do is check them. Say, this is what needs doing. You need to do this. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
The owners of the grave, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So the remedial works on top of this, if people don't.
What I would then bring back to you is the reports of those that failed. So obviously I'll tell you a certain number have passed. That'd be marvellous. I'll bring you back the reports that have failed, and then what we as a team will need to. It will be particularly challenging for the churchyard because we'll need to try and find the grave owners, to try and trace the owners on the headstone and then ask them to put that right. If they don't put it right, we will have to put measures in place to either stabilise it or lay it flat.
Which is what we did before.
Yeah, but I don't know what went on before, but obviously there hasn't been then that level of work.
And are we responsible for the churchyard as well as the council?
Yeah,
I'm amazed. Why is the church not?
because the town council decided to take it on.
Oh, okay.
When it was a closed churchyard, we got all the responsibilities with regards to health and safety and maintenance.
Yeah.
Well, what about the church up in Biddulph Moor? You know, that, I can't remember which church it is.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
they always.
I mean, are we in charge of that as well?
No, because that's not closed. St Lawrence's one is closed and there's quite a defined process to go through. Close a churchyard, a local authority has to take that over. So late 80s, early 90s, when they closed Biddle. That's,
I thought that the Church of them all was still open, although it's not used as one.
Hilltop,
If I may, Chair, I
It's more
what I was saying when, I just want to check, man. Back when this was done, I think it was 20 odd years ago, we did exactly that. We reported, we checked them, we reported this needs to do, these need stabilising, and stabilisation was put in. I presume then grave owners were contacted and some corrected, but there are still some, if you go and have a look, there are still some steel rods in there. The wood's long since deteriorated and gone away, but they were never corrected, and I just wonder, you know, who's enforcing this? I mean, we're not talking, I think this comes from the days when gravestones were this big and they could fall on somebody and flatten them. They're not quite that big now. And it just seems like a bit of a money-making racket to me, quite frankly. But, you know, if it's falling over, put it flat. I'm a bit loath to spend this amount of money on inspections that don't seem to have any teeth when the report's been done. That's just me thinking that. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
if I might tactfully respond and say what we should have done is followed all of those up with some remedial,
And we did. But obviously, if you can't say to people what you do, and we perhaps should
lay it flat.
have laid them flat, shouldn't we?
councillor Morton.
Thank you. I'd simply like to pick up something that councillor Jones said there about what can we do. In a sense, it strikes me that the town council are hiding to nothing in some regards, because the memorials that are most likely to fail will be the older ones, and some of these quite big ones, the older ones. And I certainly noticed in St Lawrence's, those which one time were pristine examples are all showing the older ones advancing years. And I don't quite know, but there seems to be more subsidence of memorials there than I ever remember when I was younger. But be that as it may, a lot of these older ones are being involved families that perhaps have now died off or moved away. So to actually find relatives to actually do remedial work on the very ones that are most likely to need remedial work is likely to be very difficult. And that's why I say, what do you think we expect to do? It could work out to be quite an expensive job if you did it very thoroughly and conscientiously.
I mean, if I may, a personal opinion of mine is and I'm sure we all do, we remember the headlines in Stoke about Newcastle under Lyme more recently, but in Stoke a few years ago, when families rocked up to the cemetery and found literally hundreds of headstones had been laid down without warning or otherwise. And it became quite a major kind of incident. And I think we need to avoid that at all costs. We do. Councillor Smith first. I've got you. I've got Councillor Redfern now. Yeah, Councillor Smith.
I'm of the opinion it's a lot of money. However, if there was someone who got injured as a result of one of these gravestones, they absolutely 100% would seek funds from us from that, which would be a substantial amount more than that I would have thought. I do have some personal experience of this process. My grandparents, my nana, they stuck a little sticker on, couldn't get hold of us, and they actually laid it flat because for some reason the record keeping, they didn't have the details. And then when we went to visit, which wasn't very often because it's over in Anglesey, we found it laid flat and it was quite upsetting. We understood that, you know, someone got injured by that, they weren't able to contact us. We contacted them, we did the remediation on it and did it, so that was that. But I'm just more concerned about someone getting injured by something that's not very stable, particularly children.
Agree. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm following on what Charlie's saying really, because I think we're on the same page, and John. I mean, to me, if we send a letter to a person in that, on the next of kin, you know, the gravestone is in a dangerous position, please rectify, and they don't reply in 6 months, we should lay it flat. And I think that should be a policy, quite frankly, that if after sending letters, do we keep it recorded and all that sort of rubbish? But if they don't reply in 6 months, that's it, job done.
The slight amendment to that is, as long as the information you hold is still up to date with regard to that family.
Who knows?
I'm fairly sure that it won't be.
Well, the only,
Sorry, Councillor Smith.
Just reply to that about it's not our responsibility as a council to chase people to make sure their information is up to date. If they are the next of kin for and responsible for someone's headstone, they should keep all up to date. If they move house or if they change contact details, it's not for us to chase them to find out where they are. If the details we hold are correct, then.
Whilst I agree with that, then you're then moving into the realms of the protocols that you adopt at the point that you are actually paying for that funeral to take place. Because do we say at this moment in time that, oh, and by the way, keep us informed if you do move on or anything like that? Because I would doubt that would be something that would ever cross anybody's mind when they're getting the gas and electricity switched off, is to contact the local council where mum's buried. And so I wonder if that's part of the whole discussion at the time and becomes part of protocol, it would make a lot more sense.
Councillor James.
Just start moving forward. We're talking about these quotations, could be a bit of a waste of time.
Yeah.
If we get something from Alliance that is more comparable, we could discuss it there. So could I propose we wait until we get a note from Alliance on what their price would be to do the same?
That's absolutely fine. I'm aware I've got Councillor Yates, Redfern and Jones though. Now, are your comments still applicable based on what Councillor Jackson has just said?
Yes, I think so. It's just, you know, with regard to laying tombstones, gravestones flat, there is, you know, a precedent going back centuries about dangerous tombstones being laid flat. If you walk down the side of St. Lawrence Church, you actually walk on a pavement made of very ancient gravestones, and they wouldn't have been put flat at the start. Some would. The other thing I was going to say is that there are some gravestones down there which are very old and suffering from subsidence. I'm talking some of the big crosses and big memorials, which have got historical significance to the town, you know. And I would expect that if they did require remedial work, then looking at the kind of applications which go through to the Moorlands Partnership Board, there would be a sympathetic response to actually putting those of historical value right, so to speak. So, because I wouldn't advocate ever, you know, the great big crosses of the old families going back to the 1820s, all of a sudden appearing flat on the ground. I mean, that changes the character of the churchyard. So I think there are mechanisms to effectively help to ease the financial pressure to maintain the integrity in the start of the churchyard, which I think would be supported.
could we not apply to Moorlands Partnership before we go for these, when we get these quotations?
No,
No?
Yes,
it's not part of that.
right. So
No, you need-
yeah, as Councillor Jackson said, and as the chief officer has just, you know, has just reiterated, we're not going to make any decisions on this until we have a quote from Alliance North. Is that correct? But obviously, I've still got these two other comments, and if they're still relevant based on that fact, I'm more than happy to move forward. And Councillor Redfern would be next. You did put your hand up.
I did put my,
Oh, right.
everybody seemed to interject before I was called. I find quite bad manners. Personally, Chair. I was going to interject. Councillor Jones is quite correct 20 years ago. we did have a survey done of the churchyard. And I think it was particularly in response to events that happened in Kidsgrove, where a large number of gravestones had been laid flat and caused quite a local stir in the local media. At the time, the advice that was given, again, Councillor Jones is correct, that we should stabilise the graves as they were, and we should seek then to try and find the relatives of the graves if for further works to take place. So a lot of the stuff Councillor Jones has talked about is indeed correct. And a lot of the repairs that were done were not repairs, they were simply to stabilise the situation until such time as we could get the patients to come forward. I'm quite happy to leave it at that, but the reason we've ended up in the situation as we did with the graveyard is because we did not move quick enough. Once the church declared that it was going to close the graveyard, you have a very short period of time to, if you like, arm it off onto the district council, which they successfully did in Leek. So the district council is actually responsible for the graveyards in Leek. We weren't quick enough, or did not realise, or did not have the advice at the time to be able to move quick enough to enable that to happen. So we have now taken on the responsibility. I would say I'm pleased that we have, in one respect, in that we've more control over that graveyard, how it's kept, how everything's cut down as regards the trees at the front. So in some ways it has been an advantage to this town, because we've been able to, if you like, run that graveyard rather than rely upon the Staffordshire Moorlands to do it for.
Thank you, Councillor Redfern. Councillor Jones?
Very quickly, Chair, thank you. Yeah, time's getting on, and I'm all for kicking the can down the road a bit on making a decision on cost. But whoever does these surveys, we have at some point got to work out what we're going to do when the results come in. So maybe that's not for tonight, but it is something that's going to exercise our minds for the future. And just to pick up on the Councillor saying about updating info, it's difficult to update info when you just died, isn't it? There's going to be always going to be those, isn't there? So there is always going to be some that you can't get hold of. We need to decide. That's one thing we need to decide is when we can't get hold of families, what do we do? Stabilise like we did in the past, but at some point, we've either got to do something with it, or the strapping as it's happened with the old ones is just going to melt away, and still going to have a wonky gravestone with 2 bits of steel sticking at the back of it.
Absolutely, but I think in fairness to Councillor Smith, so, you don't register your own death, do you? So I think
You see the point I'm making. People die. It's difficult to.
Councillor Brady.
I second Councillor Jackson's proposal.
Absolutely. And that proposal is we don't vote on anything until we have a third quote from Alliance Norse. Everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Vote. There we go.
Thank you. So for a future meeting, then we'll bring a draft policy for how we deal with the outcome.
Agreed.
Of this. Really, the agenda item was to update you as regards the progress with this priority, but we do need a policy on that, so we'll start to draft.
Yeah. Brilliant. 69 jobs for the Lenthsman. Do we have any job there, Councillor Yates?
Yes, I'm wondering, is it possible to quickly put the internet on the TV? Because I want to show you a footpath, which is of strange determination. If you can, there's a footpath in the crook of Wedgwood Lane and Marsh Green Lane, which is a dotted line on the footpath things. I don't quite know what I was hoping to name it as footpath number whatever, but it's a dotted line. It's a very well used footpath. And what's happened is that we've had really serious and significant flooding at the bottom of Marsh Green Lane, where it joins Wedgwood Lane, and it's once the computer's switched on, it's very easy to show. And it's almost the bridle path. It really is a good surface, good width. And I know horse riders used as well as walkers. It's very well used. However, because this flooding has been so bad, it's actually topped over and ran down this footpath like a river, and it's actually eroded it into the V channel. And it's actually very dangerous to walk on at this moment in time. Good, excellent. Can you put it onto Google Earth? On the maps onto the Earth, but
That's a good presentation.
down there. Yeah, that's it. What's this? It's because when you see where it is, you'll see exactly where. Here, it's this footpath which goes from there to there. Right, and you can see it's very, very well defined. And it used to be up until November, a really good, nice, solid, firm, flat footpath. There's been such significant flooding in this area that it's actually channeled a river which has flowed down the hill, and it is really dangerous to walk. And I'm wondering whether A, we can identify who's responsible because it's a dotted line, it hasn't got a footpath number, and B, potentially do some work to level it up. It's needing a machine just to rough the surface up, and probably some hardcore. But you wouldn't believe the damage which has been caused this winter on that footpath. And it's absolutely, you can see by the definition how well used it is. It's a gorgeous footpath. If ever anybody goes down there, it produces an ordinary circular walk actually with Bailey's Bank. Now, I'm not sure whether it's the Lensman's job, I'm not sure whether it comes under our sort of footpath budget, I'm not sure whether it's a county highways thing, but.
Councillor Jackson, because you might know the answer.
The landowner will be involved. You know, you can't just go on and.
Well, again, it doesn't cross a field. It's actually almost a track. It doesn't cross a field. The field boundaries are on either side of it, and it's a steep hedgerow with field boundaries on either side of it.
It's land, somebody.
Exactly. I mean, is it county highways? Is it whatever?
Can we investigate that one?
I don't know who actually owns it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a Lensman job, but I'll have a look.
It doesn't, but whether it's
a bit big for Lensman.
And the only other thing on the Lensman, did you manage to speak to the tree people about those 2 trees on the bypass which are causing me a lot of stress?
No, no. Yet.
That's still on the agenda. Did he do the telegraph pole at the bottom of?
I'll put that on his list again.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything else now.
Councillor Jones.
Chair, Councillor Jackson said it, we need to find out who owns it.
Yeah.
That's what.
Absolutely.
As much as anything, but it is an important.
Mr. Mayor.
Can you just tell me, Nigel, before you turn it off, where does it go from and to? What's the complete length of it?
Quick length is probably about a third of a mile.
Marsh Green Lane, isn't it?
It goes from Marshfield, the Staffordshire Knot. So it's the road which goes down of the Staffordshire Knot. So when you get to that sharp point, and then it comes out at Poynton's Nursery. It actually, it says it's Bailey's back there, but
I am familiar with that.
And then there is a footpath which continues on and joins down here. And then you can take Bailey's back and go onto the train line. So it is really well used. It's a nice one circular path. If Councillor Earley was here, he'd back me up because I trip over now and again, because he uses the same path all the time and just go in different directions. I go that way, he goes this way.
I think we can safely say that it's relevant to this committee, but it's not relevant to the Lensman. I would suggest there's this.
That would block up the Lensman budget for 12 months. Seen that?
I feel sorry for the poor. Do we have any other jobs for the Lensman? Kasicki. Councillor Kasicki.
Can we have an update of what the Lensman, the work that he actually carries out?
Point.
I have no idea what his work programme is.
Just put a pitch.
Noticed that Pittsgrove have a ranger service and he posts pictures of all the different things he's been involved in. But the bidder person doesn't seem to keep us informed about what he's doing.
Because he sent his invoices in.
Sure, yeah.
I know what it's doing, but next meeting I'll provide you a breakdown of what's done in the last while.
Also, maybe the public would be interested.
Yeah, got it.
I'm going to just say this, because it's the most obvious thing to put it under, but it wouldn't necessarily be the job for the landsman. But the question I'm putting out there, and I guess this is to you, Chief Officer, we've talked a lot about memorials and things like that. Do we keep a record of all the non-standard memorials for the people of the area, such as the trees or the benches and things like that exist? So, for example, my dad has a memorial that was awarded to him, given to him by this council, which is a tree on the Thames Drive. Now his name and that memorial plaque has been kicked up and kicked away from that, which has obviously upset my mum a great deal. So I'm talking, so those kind of things such as benches and trees, do we have a record of them? And therefore, could they be part of the lensman's role to make sure that everything is still intact if there's any damage or anything that's been done to those things? Well, first of all, do we have a record of them?
It's none of it's on our land. So we would have to grant permission. That way you're talking about there, that's not town council land.
Right, okay.
So we would only know what we put in, and what we've put in
Right.
recently is benches at Station Road and at Dorset Drive. And then we would then be responsible for looking at them and repairing them as necessary and maintaining them.
Okay.
But in terms of planting in memory of people
Yeah.
like that, we haven't got any.
Because there's some on Halls Road as well.
It's not
Yeah,
our land.
yeah. Councillor Yates.
Just on the case on point on that, and it does pick up the point about what Councillor Kazicki said about what the lensman doesn't and doesn't do. If a memorial tree gets damaged due to weather or substance or whatever, or disease, is there a mechanism for replacing that, or is it just down to the person who, you know, members of the family, a bit like the memorial stones, is it down to members of the family to actually notice that and do something about it? Because you're quite right, I mean, you're not on our land, so it's not for us to do, because there is a memorial tree on the Down Halls Road, which is like at 45 degrees.
Yes, there is.
Because it's on very sodden ground, and it's got to the point where it wants replacing. I mean, what is the mechanism? Me and Councillor Rogers tried to straighten it, and he nearly broke us in half, to be honest. But what is is there a mechanism for replacing that? Would
No,
we be
it's not on our
expecting
land,
that? No, I appreciate that. I'm just sort of thinking, but it is obviously, you know, a respected and well thought of ex-member of Biddle's Public who had a memorial tree, and it hasn't lasted 10 years, has it, really?
Presumably, Chair, if whoever's land it is has a process for repairs and maintenance, so it would depend where it was, whose land it was, and what it is that we're talking
I
about.
don't even know whose land it is, to be honest.
In terms of the town council responsibility.
Isn't it maintained by the residents of Field View? Presumably they pay a maintenance or service charge.
No. Don't know.
Councillor Brady.
The agenda item is jobs for the Lanksman.
Yes, agreed.
We
Well,
might
it's going to have to replace that tree
Yeah.
on our land, so.
Yeah, and you're absolutely quite right. And I raised it initially because of an example, and I wondered if it was a job for the lensman, and clearly it isn't. So is that it? Are we done with now with
Yeah.
jobs for the lensman? Okay, so number 270.
That's like,
Oh, sorry, this is all confidential items, yes. So at this point,
say goodbye.
oh, see you later.